All right, we're back here on SportsLine talking football. We got phone lines open, 737-7767. Titans kicking off the season on Sunday against the Vikings. College football already underway. One of the interesting debates I saw today, which ultimately doesn't matter, but heck, it is good fun to talk about, is all the changes in the college football top 25 today. LSU drops from 4 or whatever all the way down to 21. Oklahoma drops from 3 outside of the top 10. Notre Dame falls a big ways. Ole Miss falls 8 spots each. Tennessee falls 8 spots despite winning ultimately against Appalachian State in that overtime thriller. Big changes. Other teams come in. Houston shoots up to 6 in the rankings. Texas from outside to 11. Wisconsin from outside to 10. Texas A&M from outside into the top 15 or 16 in the country. A lot of people criticize that today of, whoa, we're overreacting to a week of the season. Careful with that. I think it's just reacting. As someone who's voted in these things, and full disclosure, I'm not on the AP ballot this year, but as someone who has done it several times in the past, one of my big complaints, and I think it's been a complaint from the masses in the past, is that we go in too often. They ask us to do these preseason polls, which isn't exactly fun, because you're going to be wrong. You're going to just look at paper and you're going to put your best guess out there to have something to talk about and some level of a starting point. And you're going to be wrong immediately. And then people will criticize you for that. But the problem in the past is too often the AP voters, myself included, you have these preconceived notions of, I think this team is here, and I think Team X is in this spot, in the top 5 or 10 or whatever. And then when they lose early on in the season, so they haven't accomplished anything yet, you're thinking, well, I still think they're that team. I thought they were top 5. So I'm not going to drop them that far, despite the fact that they lost. And people always had a problem with that. What have you done? I mean, at the end of the season, or at the end of the day, what you do in the season is what gets you into the college football playoff. It's what wins you a conference championship and all that. So the only thing that ultimately matters isn't the pedigree. It's not where you start. It's what you actually do on Saturdays, on the field. And in the past, too much of those preconceived notions has clouded these polls and the interpretations of who teams are and what a win over that team means. I call what happened today in the polls reacting. It's not overreacting. It's just simply reacting to what you see. Is Texas the 11th best team in the country? My guess is probably not. But does Texas deserve to be 11th today because of what they did this weekend compared to everybody else in the country? Absolutely. That's a good Notre Dame football team. And they beat them. They beat them with a freshman quarterback. That was a huge win for Texas. Now, can they keep it going? Is that who Texas is? Is that what their season's going to look like? We'll see. But you know what? They'll have a chance to prove it. Or not. That's the great part about college football over the next 11, 12 weeks, is you have more opportunities, and the more the body of work increases, the less the big swings will happen in the polls. The polls should be very fluid in September because your data is small. The information you have on these teams is small. It's made up on 1 or 2 or 3 games. As the season goes along, you get more data. You'll know if that was a huge upset and a fluke of Texas beating Notre Dame. Or you'll find out that, guess what? This is a pretty good team. They just beat TCU or Oklahoma or Oklahoma State or whatever, or they're 5-1 or 6-0. We'll find out. They'll have the opportunity to prove that. Same thing the other way. LSU falls to 21. Maybe you had them 2nd or 3rd to start the year. But there's no problem with them being 21, because if they turn around now and win games, maybe win the SEC West and get to Atlanta, that ranking's going to take care of itself. They will be back to where people think they should be. So first off, don't freak out over the big swings. You know, if you're a Tennessee fan, I heard people complain today, Tennessee won and dropped 8 spots. Frankly, based off of strictly the performance this weekend, I'm not sure if 17th was low enough for what Tennessee did. Now, I think Tennessee's a top 10 team, and I think ultimately they'll prove that. I said very much after the game on Thursday, the only thing that mattered for the Vols was that they survived and advanced. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't a good performance, but they survived and won. They are 1-0. LSU can't say that. Ole Miss can't say that. Vanderbilt can't say that. Oklahoma, there are a bunch of teams that weren't as fortunate this weekend. I expect a different looking Tennessee team to show up in Bristol on Saturday night. And if they take care of their business there and start to do it the rest of the way, they'll be where they need to be. So don't worry about them being 17th right now, because the schedule's in front of them. The opportunity is in front of them. They're 17th based off of one game where they didn't play very well and they squeaked by. There are 11 more chances and some really good teams on the schedule for the Vols to prove just how good they are. Back to the phones. Let's go to, is this D? D, good evening.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Who is paying for all the expenses to change Bristol Speedway over to the football field? Is UT Knoxville paying for it?
I think a big part of it is the Speedway itself. They wanted to have the venue. They wanted to have the spectacle of the game. There may be some expenses going between the two schools, Virginia Tech and Tennessee, in a joint venture, but here's the deal. They're selling 150,000 tickets to this game, maybe even more than that by the time Saturday comes around. They're going to make money off of this. This isn't a losing venture. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. So between the two institutions and Bristol Motor Speedway, whatever the cost it took to level out that surface and bring all the tractors in and set it up and bring the grass in and lay down the sod to make it a football venue, they're going to make that back and then some based off of the crowd that they're going to have this weekend.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you bet. All right, we got to take a break. More phone calls on the way right after this. 737-7767 is the number. Stay tuned. SportsLine's coming back.